Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning across Europe. I hope that everybody of you started pretty well into the day. I did. My name is Fero Andersen and I am hosting the Allianz Motor Day 2020. It's an information day about traffic technology, safety and security. Usually it's an on-location event where we invite journalists, experts, and once in a while politicians as well. This year, of course, it has to take place under special circumstances due to Corona restrictions. I'm really happy that it can take place anyway, so this is the perfect moment to thank everybody who made this happen. Today's topic is cyber risk in the connected car ecosystem. And first of all, I would like to make you familiar with what we want to talk about later on. Here are some main discussion points presented by the Allianz CEOs.
And just as traditional computer networks became a target for cyber attacks, vehicles are likewise increasingly exposed to cyber risks.
If a hacker attack causes an accident that injures people and damages one's own vehicle or someone else's generally, all of the Allianz Group's European subsidiaries would provide insurance coverages, and vehicle insurance takes care of the financial loss.
It must be ensured that the highest available cybersecurity standards are in place for the IT systems in the cars, but also when it comes to treating customer data.
To effectively address the challenges I've outlined, we are calling for a European solution at the 8th Allianz Autotag, a multi-industry automobile security information center.
Yeah, the Allianz CEOs Frank Sommerfeld, Herr Röhler, Mr. Röhler and Claudius Leibfritz are with us today. You can ask questions to them later on, of course, if you like to. And let me now give the little information that you find the complete speeches and all other information that you need about today's Allianz Motor Day in our download area. And now I'm really looking forward to discuss today's topic, and I'm going to do that with these experts. As we have Professor Dr. Rudi Hackenberg. He teaches IT security at the Technical University of Applied Science Regensburg. There they developed a hands-on teaching platform called Automotive Network Security Cover. We're going to talk about that later on. Good morning, Mr. Hackenberg.
Good morning.
To my left-hand side, I welcome Hans Adelkofer, who is Vice President Automotive Systems at Infineon Technologies. He says, security is the basis for new mobility features and services in order to keep the high level of trust users have in new technology also tomorrow. Good to have you, Mr. Adelkofer. Welcome. And then we have Dr. Christoph Lauterwasser, who is Managing Director at Allianz Center for Technologies. He says, the biggest challenge in automotive IT security is to guarantee security over the whole lifetime cycle of the vehicle. Good morning, Mr. Lauterwasser. Due to Corona restrictions, Fraunhofer Institute does not allow its employees actually to travel. I'm really happy to be connected with him anyway. I welcome Professor Dr. Christoph Kraus, who is connected with us. He's head of Department Cyber Physical Systems and Automotive Security at Fraunhofer Institute for Secure Information Technology. What a title. Can you hear me, Mr. Kraus? Good morning.
Yes, I can hear you very well and I can see you. Thank you.
Perfect.
And thank you for the opportunity to join remotely to this discussion today.
You're very welcome. We are happy to have you today. You will be with us the whole hour. So if you go to toilet, you can do that, but be with us quickly again. All right? All right, so we got a great group of experts, but I would like to start with the Chief Claims Officer, also dem Schadenvorstand, Allianz Versicherungs AG, and he is sitting in another studio because we have to take care about the Corona restrictions. Mr. Jochen Haug is in the room next to us. This is Mr. Förster. I'm going to welcome him as well. Mr. Hau, can you hear me?
Yes, very well, thank you.
All right. This is the first time that we are doing it this way, so I would like to start emotionally. What do you feel when you're thinking of connected cars?
Well, first of all, it's a big opportunity. I mean, we realize it in our daily lives. We live with smartphones, smart homes are more and more coming, smart offices and all the mobility. And connected cars is just another part of this journey and a seamless digital interaction. And nevertheless, it's kind of the smart and connected car like a driving smartphone. So I'm looking forward to the development from an insurance perspective, but also from a private person. And if you see by 2023, we're going to have about 110 million connected cars all over Europe. So this is going to be quite exciting.
The information for you guys out there, if you have any questions today, please don't hesitate to ask them. You find the chat box, I think it's on the bottom right in your streaming window. There, please put in your questions. We're going to collect them and answer them later on. Mr. Kraus, can the journalists, can I feel safe driving in a connected car today?
I think this is a very, very important question because, well, what we need is trust in the connected car or even in cars with driver assistance systems or automated cars which communicate with the outside world. So I think your question, you stated this question because there were some recent incidents, you know, like the GPEC a couple of years ago or some attacks on Tesla. Also, just recently, there have been some attacks on Mercedes-Benz presented at the Black Hat 2020. And all these attacks have shown that IT security is of paramount importance. So what we need is we want to integrate security mechanisms from the beginning. And of course, we cannot prevent attacks 100%. So there's always a remaining risk. And what we must do is to have some security concepts and architectures which minimize the risk. Let's take this attack on the Mercedes-Benz, for example. The attackers were able to remotely perform attacks, open the car, for example, what would be a problem for insurance companies, but they were not able to manipulate safety critical systems such as a brake. So we need something like this, that even if there are some attacks, the attacks cannot be performed on some safety critical systems, or attacks cannot scale. So if you can attack one car, you cannot attack all of the cars, so for example. So what I want to say, if you have a security architecture in place which was thoroughly developed, you can trust such a car and you can use a car. And I would also sit in a car where I know this is a car which has implemented a very good security architecture. Of course, if you have a car where you can perform a lot of attacks and which have been known in the past, there is not a good security architecture. You should think about this. So I think this will also be a selling point. If you integrate appropriate and very good security mechanisms, think about a good security architecture, then the people will trust this manufacturer and also will buy a car because they know, okay, in this car, I can still be safe against some attackers.
Mr. Adelkofer was listening to that pretty well. I guess we will also talk about the role that the car industry itself and of course the suppliers can play in the whole security scenario. But we would first start with a little film. Here it is. It's not everything, but a part that you are doing, Mr. Adelkofer. You supply the car industry with semiconductors. In German, it's Halbleitersysteme. As an automotive supplier, how would you rate the risk due to cyber attacks?
We are a semiconductor supplier, or let's say the basis for a lot of modern functions. And the one modern function which we see is the connected car. So we have to accept the car is part of the IoT. So everything what is connected will be attacked. So this is a basic rule. We cannot run away. So from that point, it depends from the hacker point of view very much what does he or she has to invest in order to break into a system. So what is then the benefit, what he is gaining from this attack? Just stealing a car or even manipulating a car, this is what is the outcome. And therefore, it depends very much on this point. We have to lift then this level of hurdle so high that the hackers are not interested to attack a car. And this is where semiconductors are an immense part, because they have a hardware basis on which the software and the overall secure architecture is built on. And what we have to see also is there will be no safety anymore in the future. Mr. Klaus said trust without security. So security becomes an integral part of the architecture of a car.
At what point and what exactly can the suppliers do and help to make the systems less fragile?
What we have to consider is also in the car industry that we are not just talking about the car itself. There's a production, there's an operational phase. So we have to also think about how a car is developed, how a car is produced. All these stages are having doors to open in which hackers can go into. So therefore we have to look from an end-to-end solution in terms of security, from the chip which we are producing in our factories up to the dealer which is bringing the car onto the street here. And in operations means also a lot of service provider will be tomorrow in the car. And these kind of services have to be protected as well. So therefore we have to look into a whole ecosystem. So therefore it's a cooperation needed from all parties, not only semiconductors, not only OEMs, the whole value chain up to the service provider have to work hand in hand in order to make a secure system.
It was 2018 when we had 37 million connected cars, and it could be up to 110 million in 2 years. And these are only numbers concerning Europe. Are you ready? Is your industry prepared for the future?
If you would have asked me this question 3 years ago, my answer would have been no.
No. Right.
So the last couple of years, I have to admit that there was a change visible, that discussions are different, and the attention towards the topic of security is much, much higher than 3-5 years ago. And therefore, we are now discussing really how we have to improve our car architecture to be secure. So we are getting ready, and it's a race. So the good news is we have solutions from other industry, IT industry or banking industry, which we can utilize to bring it into the car industry. So we don't need to invent the wheel new. But on the other side, we are in a race which has no finishing line. So we are always racing here with the hackers who are also developing their attacks further and further. And therefore, we have to be always one step ahead of these industries. So from that point, yes, we are getting ready and we have improved significantly, but it's not an end point which we have to envision.
On a scale from 1 to 10, how hard is the race that you're racing? 10 is the hardest.
It's definitely, at the moment, the advantage that the automotive industry is not so much in focus, so the classical IT industry is more in the focus. This will change, for sure. So therefore, at the moment, I would say we are in a level 5, but I see very soon that it will go up to 8 or 9, and this is not far away.
Let's turn to the teaching perspective. Professor Hackenberg, what do you think? Is the car industry ready for the future? Are they prepared?
Well, as Mr. Adelkofer said, it's a competition and technology goes advanced, and so the vulnerabilities are changing. I think, and I share his opinion, so the last 3-4 years, the mindset changed a bit in automotive industry, and the awareness concerning IT security went clearly up. Maybe because also there are some new standards visible at the end of the horizon. So it's sooner or later they need to address it in their development, in the product development, and also in their testing. So I strongly believe they are now at a good position, but they need to get some more, maybe let's call it automation in place, automation when they do software development for cars, and automation when they do testing, security testing especially. That's important because you need to meet and document you have reached a certain maturity level for your software in the car. But I would be positive, and I also see some more work coming up and some more research going on in the next few years to meet the standards.
Are you cool, or is it rather hectic? Do they have to hurry?
Oh, well, I would not look around for long, so I would just go and do it. And the problem is right now there is also large demand on experts in the area of IT security, and so it's quite a bit of competition on the market to hire people who are able to understand and be able to do the necessary technologies for making cars more secure.
Do we have enough IT specialists? I mean, you are teaching.
Yeah, I think the European universities put in quite some effort over the last at least 5, maybe 10 years to diversify and to make special courses. So we have not only embedded system courses, we have things like hardware, software, co-design. We don't have the standard IT-based IT security topics. We also have now automotive IT security courses. And the universities not only offer very specialized courses by now, or have created them, but they also hire professors, and they start new departments, and they offer new degree courses in these areas which are very specialized. So to me that's a good sign, and I think from the point of graduates from universities, I would say all over in Europe, they will hit the industry very well educated, with a strong expertise and with a large amount of awareness regarding IT security in the field of cyber-physical systems. So I'm very sure about that, so we can face the future. But if you consider, for example, the, let's call it knowledge life cycle, okay? The knowledge life cycle is kind of short for so-called IT experts or IT security experts. That means, in another sense, an IT expert, whatever that is, needs to learn quite a few times new topics in his working lifetime. And that again means that the industry also has responsibility to train and educate their own software developers, let's say. And so the university can give it the first push, but I believe the industry also needs to take on the responsibility and educate the people, so we get enough of the specialists.
But just a short yes or no from today on spoken, do we have enough specialists in Germany, in Europe?
Now, today, here and now, we do not. But I think, if universities and industry will cooperate by educating, by teaching, by training, I think we can catch up a bit.
You had a cooperation with the Allianz Center for Technology, and let's say as a kind of result, you developed a hands-on teaching platform called ANSCO. We will have a short look to that. Well, hopefully a couple of students are watching us. We say hi from here in Unterföhring. This is a film produced by your students. What is special about ANSCO, about this teaching platform?
Yeah, ANSCO. Let me spend a few sentences before about our cooperation with the ACT. So what we do is basically we investigate security risks on cars or on parts of cars or on components of cars, and try to show and qualify and demonstrate what impact it might have, or what damage could be done. So that's basically what we do, and from there we draw some very interesting topics for graduate students, for their thesis, or for PhD students who are then able to maybe improve their works a bit. And it also, whatever we learn in this cooperation, personally myself can also trickle it into my lectures a bit. So that's a very nice and valuable cooperation. And over the years, it's going on almost 5 years now, we have found the one or other vulnerability in different types of cars and in different components, and we have collected them. We didn't forget them, and we kind of extracted them, and we got them ready, and we put them into the ANSCO. So the ANSCO by itself represents a part of an automotive network, of an automotive architecture, full of vulnerabilities. Okay, and the students now can do it, can hack it, can try to hack it, and learn hands-on what it means in a different quality than conventional lectures, what it means and how it looks like when a car is being hacked, and what you need to know. I very much like to compare it always with medical students. When medical students, when they open up and they cut open a body, a dead body basically, and have the chance to look at the cancer, they see how it looks like. They might see how they can cut it out, you know. So in this sense, for computer science students, the ANSCO is the dead body. Okay.
All right. We didn't hear Mr. Lauterwasser so far. I guess probably automotive security, IT security isn't business as usual for you. Compared to normal IT technology, what is special? What are the main differences?
Well, the car originally is a mechanical device, so to say, a product of mechanical engineering, and more we see electronic content coming to the car. And I think at this point we have to rethink the car in terms of how it's structured, how it's connected to the internet. So the big difference to classical IT is, on the one hand, it has to function real time. So the traditional communication in the car, the CAN bus, does not have much authentication because there's not much time. If you do an emergency braking, this has to be immediate, and there's not much time for the control units to communicate with each other. So this has to be rethought, so to say, with new bus systems. But also the car means it always has safety implications. As soon as you meddle with the control units and with the software, it could have an immediate safety implication for the customer. And finally, we should not forget, it's a very long-living good, and it's a very valuable good, which makes it a target for theft, but also a target for ransom, extortion, for example. Mm-hmm.
What would you say is the most challenging part, seeing the vehicle's whole lifetime cycle?
Yes, you have to think, if you look at the processes, you have the development phase of maybe 4 years, 5 years for the car, then it's produced for 4 years, maybe there's a facelift again. So if you add this up, you come easily to nearly 20 years or more. And then the question is, how does the IT environment develop over that long period of time? And I think that's the biggest challenge for the car manufacturers, for the automotive industry. How can I guarantee safety and security of the vehicle over such a long period of time?
Mm-hmm. Mr. Kraus, the part of electric vehicles, of course, will increase over the next years. So will the infrastructure behind, for example, battery charging stations. What does that mean for cyber attacks and cyber risk in general?
Yeah, that's a very good question. If we have electric vehicles, we have also now more and more communication So for example, for electric vehicles, there's a communication standard standardized by ISO 15118, which standardizes the communication between an electric vehicle and the charging point. So you do not have to authenticate yourself using an RFID card. You just connect your car, or if you have some inductive charging, you just drive there, or the car automatically parks there. And all the negotiation of the charging parameters, all the authentication authorization is done automatically. But of course, with this communication, we also have a possibility to perform new attacks. So we can try to attack the vehicle. Maybe we can also try to read out credentials for the charging, to misuse this data to charge on the behalf of someone else. Also, attacks on the charge points are possible. So the charge points are operated also from some back-end charge point operator that we have also communication. And in 2 years, I think it was 2 years ago at the Chaos Communication Congress, we've seen attacks on charge points, how easy they are possible. So if an attacker can, for example, manipulate many charge points where there are cars connected, he could also try to do some coordinated attack where all the cars charge simultaneously to affect the power grid. So we do not have only attacks on the cars, but maybe also on the power grid. So this interaction is very important to investigate from a security perspective. These are research topics we are doing at Fraunhofer SIT in my department. So we are developing solutions to improve the ISO 15118. So there's currently the edition 1 and the edition 2 is currently under standardization. We are participating in the standardization to fix some security issues with the first edition. We also try to develop, or we do develop new security solutions for securing the cars. For example, in a car that we have these credentials, how can we secure them against illegal theft of these credentials? We also developed a protection profile and a prototype for a secure charge point, where we can detect manipulation of such charge points so that an attacker cannot perform some coordinated attacks. So there's still a lot of work to do in this area of electric mobility to address all the possible attack points, but we're working on this.
All right. So far, we've a lot talked about the risk in the connected car ecosystem. If there are some, I would also like to talk about the chances. Therefore, I would like to join in an expert in digital forensics, Mr. Hackenberg. Would you be so kind and make some room? It's only because of Corona restrictions. Don't blame me for that. And I welcome Konrad Meyer, working for CETIS. Good morning.
Good morning.
What is CETIS and what are you doing?
Well, CETIS is like a development company, let's say, for the German law enforcement agency. So, for example, like the BKA or our federal police. And we are working like on a project basis for them. So they are saying what they want to have developed, what tools do they need to work, and we're developing the tools that they need. Mm-hmm. And so I am working there in digital forensics. We also have like lawful interception, we have big data, we have cryptography, so we have different units. And I'm working there in digital forensics. Mm-hmm. And there, mostly I'm working with car forensics. And this is like the connection to this subject here.
As I said, the list of risks is a pretty long list. Do you see chances as well? And can you give us an example?
Yeah, like obviously there are a lot of chances, like always, where there are risks, there are also chances. For me, like I will pick two, because one is like from my forensic point of view is very important, which is also very important, I guess, for the insurance companies. Mm-hmm. And this is, in the cybersecurity context, we need logging data. We need data that we know what happened in the system, even also thinking about automated driving. We need to know what happened inside the car. So we need data, we need logged data. And this is something that a forensic specialist is always glad to have it, because when you have data, you can do something with it. You can see what the car did, you can see what the driver did, and you know, for example, how an accident did happen. So one chance is that, because if you want to have security and you want to know like if something went wrong, you always want to know if something went wrong, because then you can improve your system. And for this, you need a good, secure, and also authenticated logging. And this is something that is a big chance, in my opinion, for every digital forensic specialist and also for the insurance companies, obviously. And the second thing is that now the companies, they have now a focus on this thematic. So now they're doing something in this field, and this means that there will also be side effects, which makes maybe other things inside the car more secure. Like thinking about car thefts, like if you're already touching the security of the car, like not the safety, but the security, then you can also improve, for example, your immobilizer system, and you can make it harder that a car is stolen. Like those are like 2 points that are, for a digital forensic specialist, very interesting, and I guess also like in the big context of insurances and stuff.
As you said, the data, the personal data is as fundamental, I would say, as breathing fresh air for us. But how can that be managed fair and without any discrimination? Isn't that hard business?
Yes. First of all, for this, like some regulations are already existing, but for this first we need the lawmaker to make the legislative right. So who has the right to get data in which field? Like, for example, if you have an accident, yes, okay, the insurance company has obviously a right to get the data because they want to know what happened. But this has to be done by the lawmaker, because now it is still kind of like not really regulated, but also we need to know which data has to be inside the car. Like now also this is mostly not regulated. So you need like at least in a European context, we need to have some regulations which data has to be inside the car, like to detect cyber attacks, but also to detect other things. And then we need to make the laws inside the countries which are saying who has the right to get it. Because like the standard which data has to be inside, I think it's European, but who has the right to access data, this is more like a thing from the countries where they have to say what they want and what they want to do, because also the citizens have a right to say what they want and which data they want to be exposed to companies or so on.
Digital forensics is a good subject, and it's really, really important also for the insurer, in this case, the Allianz. We're going to show you why using the example of the virtual key.
Our classic car from 1974 could be easily unlocked and started with this pure mechanical key. With raising theft figures, we had to do something on this and had to add an electronic transponder to the mechanical key. Today, we have pure electronic keys which work without any mechanical devices remotely.
The new generation of vehicle key becomes an application on smartphones. The car user can open the car door and start the engine with their smartphone without having a physical key in their pocket. Only an authorized person has access to the car.
Total theft is a real issue for an insurer. Therefore, the insurer has to make plausible that a claim has really taken place. The customer, due to this, has to deliver the keys of a stolen car to the insurer. This is in order to make sure that he can't sell and file a claim. Insurers need to address things like this in their claims handling processes, and with regard to the virtual vehicle key, this requires special processes. If you have a standard key, you can deliver this to your insurer. If you have a key in your smartphone, would you like to deliver the smartphone to the insurer? Better not. So therefore, we need another process. It is therefore essential that in the back end of the manufacturer, where the virtual vehicle keys are administered, there must be a log function. This log function stores all the activities in terms of, is there a key activated, is a key deactivated. If the insurer has access to this information, it is not necessary to deliver any smartphone to the insurer.
Well, this is a perfect question to Mr. Haug. So we be connected to the other room again. Mr. Haug, why is forensics, digital forensics, so important for US Allianz?
Yes, well, so for us, it's important that we can serve our customers smooth, convenient and fast. For this, it's important to know what actually really happened. So before, you had some people maybe watching an accident and then later tell you, the police came, look at the streets and all that. Now we have, with all this data landscape and connected driving, a very different source of information, which is key. So maybe let's look in where forensic is needed, or what actually can happen and when and how we would need the data. The one thing is car theft. So your car is gone, a connected car, and you had a virtual key, as you just saw. We usually gonna ask you to send us the original set of hardware keys. This is not possible. You cannot send your smartphone in, so we need the data in terms to identify, to have very clear proof that there was not a virtual car holder, someone given to him and going around with the car, but the car is really stolen, so we can refund and cover. The second thing is, imagine an accident happens. The car will know a lot of things, will know about braking times, acceleration, and can basically tell us what really happened. And the third very important thing is, and this also goes into prevention, we need to know what kind of a cyber attack might have been happened. Was it the driver in charge, maybe at a moment of an accident? Was this a software, the connected car? Or even was it the software being manipulated by a hacker? We will still cover as an insurance, and we will be still there for the customers if something happens even after a cyber attack. However, it's very important to know in a forensic way what have happened, if possible prevent it, learn from it, and then prevent from for the future. And a connected car is not different to any other IT system. The same as you have hacking attacks for bank, credit cards, hospitals. You have it also on connected cars. Then it's the big difference. Is it a single car attack? So somebody, let's put it like that, damage your car, not by scratching it and walking by, but by putting something, a malware, into your car system, and then something happens. We will still cover the damage caused, maybe you need some replacements, or in case of an accident. However, and here's forensic very, very crucial, if a hacker, and this is absolutely possible, will hack into a whole fleet, into a whole kind of a car model, and have remotely then access maybe to thousands of cars, then this is not only for the insurance important, this is also the sphere of the car manufacturer, but we need to know, file the data, learn about this kind of attacks. So far, fortunately, only white hat attacks, so hackers helping us to improve, to learn, to make our systems better, but it can definitely happen, and we need to know, file, and learn from it. And maybe the two key messages which hold true, and it was said before, there will never be 100% safety. It will be a never-ending race, and we need to be ready for, let's say, the next possible attack.
Well, as I see, there are many possible things that can happen. Mr. Adelkofer, what do you think? Will we only use this virtual key in the future?
I would say the future is going in this direction, because we have to keep in mind that the actual keys, physical, that means mechanical keys or electronic keys, they are, let's say, based on technology which are more than 20 years old already. So I would say not state of the art. So therefore, I see this more as a chance also, these virtual keys, to apply the latest security technologies into the car. So we as semiconductor companies are putting already dedicated security devices in mobile phones, which can act as security anchors for exactly these kind of services. So what was also just said, that we need to detect and we have to prevent these kind of attacks. So we need also upgradability, and this is exactly why virtual keys offer exactly this kind of chance to be upgraded or upgradable.
Mr. Lauterwasser, to make this virtual key reliable and, let's say, secure, I think it has to be cooperations between the car industry and, for example, the Allianz Center for Technology, so different parties have to work together. How can that look like, and what exactly can that improve?
Well, definitely. We have worked closely together with Fraunhofer Institute, with Professor Krause's team, to develop a standard for virtual vehicle keys, which is now an international standard via the ARCA organization. And it defines, on the one hand, our requirements regarding forensics, for example, data to be logged and stored, because that's absolutely necessary to serve our customers. But it also defines certain levels of security that we expect. And in detail, actually, we have close discussions with car manufacturers how the virtual key is realized, what kind of functions are permissible, and what we think is rather critical, because there's a lot of detail to be handled with a virtual vehicle key. And the standard gives some guidance to the car manufacturers. And we had a lot of discussions in the process of developing the standard. We try always to be technology neutral, so we don't say you have to realize it this way, but we define basic specifications along the lines of existing security concepts with normal keys.
And a big question will be how to ensure the customer as secure as possible. And there is a guy who has probably an answer to that. We switch to Rico Förster, Head of Commercial Motor Global P&C at Allianz SE. And he is also connected with us in our, let's say, regional studio. Mr. Förster, you can hear me, I guess?
Very well. Thank you.
Well, let's ask, if an Allianz client asks you today whether he's insured against cyber attacks, what would you have to answer?
I'm following the discussion we just had, and I would say good news first. There is insurance for the major perils. We have in motor insurance. First is the third-party victim. It's covered across Europe. If there is a cyber attack and the car is hacked and an accident happens, a third-party victim, a person, or a damage on a car or something else happen. The second main thing is the car as such. So the accident at the car is also covered across Europe. And the third main aspect we have discussed is the theft. And the theft is basically also covered, and we have listened to the IT, forensic, and so on. So it's a lot of technique and IT behind, but for the end client, it's easy. We secure you, and we want that the claims are covered. We want to be in the ecosystem, the center for claims. We stay there, and we will be. And it will be a connection between many parties. We have seen today Fraunhofer, universities, car manufacturers, of course, and we only together can reach the target that we can ensure claims also in the future.
Am I right that cyber attacks are not only concerning the motor insurance itself?
That's right. There are many other aspects. Jochen mentioned, for example, hospitals, which happened last week in Duisburg. Unfortunately, there are also actually people and lives are threatened. But more plastic, if you take a car manufacturer, you have a plant and there are attacks, for example, to disrupt the production chain. This could be a major thing. Or if you think about the connected home, where the security standards are not in that level, what we're discussing, if someone hacks your house, takes all the cameras, or even the toys you can buy for your children with have a camera inside, these are all objects to be hacked and then taken over. So there are a lot of possibilities for cyber attacks going forward, and I think the end customer awareness, it's the highest key now to basically together develop things, but also that the client understands what risks actually happen or can happen if this or that is being bought or the house or the flat is being connected.
Mr. Förster, thank you very much so far. You will be answering questions later on as well. I would now like to make it even more international. Therefore, I welcome a guy in France. If everything is gonna work properly, I'm connected in Paris with the head of P&C Retail at Allianz France. Bonjour à Pierre Vess.
Hear me well.
Wow, that is great. Now we're connecting Australia and all the other countries. No, we start with France first. Tour de France is it just ended. How was it?
Yes.
Did you cycle?
It was great and a very nice finish in Paris. Yes, I do cycle. The finish was amazing.
All right. Now let's get to hard daily business, Mr. Vez. Today's topic is cyber risks in the connected car ecosystem. Would you be so kind and describe us the status quo in France?
Yes, of course. So the status quo in France is quite similar to Germany, I would say. So definitely we see cyber risk as a major risk. And for insurance, clearly the priority lies on protecting the victims of the car accidents. So basically our coverage as Allianz France will apply even if the accidents are caused by cyber incidents or viruses. Then we will have a recourse against the responsible of the malware, but for the victims, it will be fully transparent. And as Herr Förster mentioned, regarding vehicle damage, they will be covered as long as these are physical damages and also cyber theft. So basically, our clients can definitely feel safe regarding cyber risk if they are victims of a cyber accident.
And what would you say is the main differences and what is also the main similarities in the systems?
Yeah. Exactly. So the differences are mainly in the details, but the details can be quite important. So for instance, contrary to Allianz Germany, we do not cover the operating system of the car. So basically, if there is an issue, for instance, a virus or a malware that's impacting the operating system of a car, we are not covering the system itself. We are of course covering all the consequences of the system failure, be it bodily injuries or physical damage, but not the cost of the repair of the system. We are also offering legal protection to our clients. So basically, we help them to manage the complaint against the responsible of the hacking, and we go with them to court. And we also cover the potential consequences of loss or theft of data within the car. So if personal data is hacked, we do cover the consequences of this theft. And regarding data, we are also in France giving a lot of attention to the issue of data ownership. As mentioned already before in the discussion, it is key that the data produced by the connected cars is owned by the client and not directly by the manufacturer for the benefit of the client, because this will need to be shared, as Mr. Haug mentioned, in case of cyber hacking or to analyze the root causes of accidents.
Monsieur Vez, merci beaucoup so far. Please be with us till the end, because there could be questions in the direction to France, so we will try to answer them. Thank you very much so far. And for you again, the tip, you can ask questions, put them in the chat box, and we try to answer them after this panel. Well, Mr. Adelkofer, by talking about these cyber attacks, it's always about ransomware, so Erpressungssoftware and other viruses that, let's say, spread into the ecosystem, the mobility ecosystem. What has to be done that the accumulation risk can be minimized as best as possible?
We have here a complex topic, because you have to see a car of today has up to 100 small computers inside, 11 interfaces. So this is exactly the entry point in which we can have this kind of software, and which can, let's say, manipulate the car or can even stop the operation. On top, we have also services. We want to have fleet services, for example. And this is exactly the risk now that people will use this. So therefore, we have to work together along this kind of value chain to make all these small computers, all these interfaces secure in order to give no hacker the chance to interfere here. And this is the potential risk. And of course, it's not only stealing a car, which was in the past the main topic. It's also that you can stop fleets in operation. You can stop services like charging. So all these kind of accumulation risks are given. So therefore, just by working together, I think we can minimize this overall risk, but we cannot, let's say, take it away, this risk. It's given.
We didn't talk about the situations. Let's say that the car is used as a weapon. What has to be done in your business area of digital forensics that this is not possible in the future?
Well, first, forensics comes after the incident, so we're kind of behind this situation.
Right.
But we can let the awareness grow. This is like, let's say, our business. Like we can say this was happening or this could happen, and you have to make something safe. But in my field, like digital forensics, we can just try to make the proof possible. What happened. This has to be done because just if you have the proof what happened, just then you can improve the system. It is always bad when something was happening and you have to do something afterwards, but this is how the world is going. And so you need at least when something happened, if something happened, afterwards you have to have the chance to reconstruct what happened. And this obviously is even getting bigger when you think about automated driving, where you have like mostly till today, a lot of times a black box where you don't really know what is inside because the manufacturer doesn't give it to you and you have to reconstruct what happened outside this black box if you don't have a correct logging. So even then you will need other experts because like just digital forensic guys, like normal IT forensic guys, car forensic guys, they maybe don't know a lot about machine learning and automated driving stuff. So you will also need like to get those people inside the team to reconstruct stuff to make cars more safe, more secure in this case.
Yeah, it's a difference. Safe, secure. I didn't know that
in
before,
German, it's always the same,
yeah.
But obviously in English, I'm speaking here about the security of the car.
Would you say that the risk can be minimized to 0% that a car can't be used as a weapon in the future?
No, as my colleague said before, this is obviously not possible, but we can make it as hard as possible.
Right. Mr. Lauterwasser, over-the-air updates are significant, I guess. What other security actions do you ask for that we reduce the risk to a minimum?
Well, first of all, I think it's an overall process which is called cybersecurity management. So you need to consider a lot of things. It's not just the software, it's the hardware. It's also your reaction times if something happens. I think to the management system, it's very important to have a quick reaction if something happens, to be able to limit the amount of damage, for example, and to react also on your product development side, for example. And actually, I can say our experience have been mixed, so different manufacturers at the moment are at different phases in terms of setting up the security management systems, but they will have to according to the law and according to the regulation, which is now developed in Geneva in the UNECE.
Mr. Kraus, just shortly spoken, standardized solutions are probably the solutions. How can they look like? What has to be done in the next month, years?
Yeah, as we just heard, there are some ongoing activities. So in June this year, the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe adopted the UN regulations on cybersecurity requirements and software updates for connected vehicles. And they will come into force, I think, in January next year. So this is important so that we have some regulations. And also we need, of course, some standards. And in the standard section, we have, for example, now the ISO 21434. Which is a standard for cybersecurity engineering. It is similar to the ISO 26262, which has been developed for vehicle safety. So we have, again, these two different terms. In Germany, it's always security, Sicherheit. So in English, we have safety. So the functionality of the car is enforced. And now we have, which was very important in the past, which is still important. And now with this ISO 21434, we have also security requirements. And this is important to implement appropriate security mechanisms and that we have some requirements to use state-of-the-art security, that we have standardized processes and to improve the overall security.
Mr. Haug, let's get back to you for, let's say, a clothing question. The Allianz is asking for a automotive security information center, a solution throughout Europe. Why is that important?
Well, as we see, like cyber, connected space, IT, and also possible cyber hacks, they do not have a respect borders. So it's by nature a thing which can only be solved and learned from each other in a bigger scale, and not each, let's say, country is doing own things. Because also cars are sold all over Europe, and so it's very important, let's say, to join forces. This needs not to be only multinational, which is important, but equally important is also across the industries, because the car or connected car is not only a car thing, it's same a platform like a smartphone for many applications, providers of information, and we all need them at the same table and organized in order to detect possible attacks early, to prevent, and if happen, to learn and then prevent for the next time, to have a really good chance in this never-ending race.
Last question to you guys. Thumbs up or down. Do you agree to Mr. Haug? Mr. Meyer?
Yes, absolutely agree.
Definitely.
Great, everybody satisfied at the end. But this is only the end of our panel. Now it's your turn. You probably got some questions as well. Thank you so far to everybody sitting here. Thank you so much, Mr. Kraus. You can ask questions, of course, to the experts, also to Mr. Haug and Mr. Förster. Pierre Wess is still with us in France, and you can also ask our Allianz CEOs, as we have with us today Mr. Frank Sommerfeld, Claudius Leibfritz, and Klaus-Peter Röhler, who are still with us. It would be great. I would love to see you guys in your streaming window. It isn't possible, but you can at least let us know who you are and what you're working for. So if you have a question, put it in the chat box, if not happened yet, and let us know who you are, what you want to know, and we try to position the question to the right person. Do we have any questions so far? There is a question. Thank you very much for that. It is about the scenarios of cyber attacks, and the question is, what do experts think might be the purpose of attacking a single car system? Do they expect blackmailing certain car producers, or what other scenario might be a possible threat for a car owner? Scenario of cyber attacks. If you agree, I would say this is a perfect question to Mr. Kraus.
So as far as I understand the question correctly, it's why you should attack only one car. So I think the question is behind this: if you can attack one car, can you perform an attack on other cars of a fleet? So we have seen in the past security approaches. For example, we used a single car or just a bunch of cars which are used in all cars of one fleet, for example. So in this case, I think it makes sense to attack one car, and you can misuse all the keys to attack a broad range of cars, so a whole fleet. And then, of course, you can do something like install ransomware and try to get some money out of it, or get some reputation loss on the car manufacturer. If you want to have only one car and you have a good security concept with different cryptographic keys on each car, then maybe an attacker can only attack one car. In this case, I think, well, the damage is limited. Of course, you can only attack one car, but still, if you can have a serious consequence, like someone losing life and limb, for example, in an accident. In this case, it's also, again, an attack against the reputation. And if you can perform this attack again and again, you can also try to get some money from the car manufacturer if you want to stop, for example. So I think this is something you have to think about. So I think if you have a security concept where you can attack only one car, you can limit the damage an attacker can cause. So this is also very important. I think I said this before. If you can attack only one car and only if the damage you can cause is limited, so that you maybe can open the car and it got stolen, okay, this is not a problem in case if you can manipulate the brakes and someone gets injured, for example.
All right, Mr. Kraus, I'm happy again to have you. This was hopefully a perfect answer to the question. We've got already the second one. It's concerning security of connected features in the car. And I would like to ask this question to Mr. Hackenberg, who is with us. Mr. Hackenberg, could you please take a seat in the other studio, make a change with... there he is already. Damn, it works perfect. It works so proper today. The question is, we're gonna get through that together. Please play the question again. There it is. Which solution is the most dangerous for connected cars? Onboard internet access via eSIM, phone integration, or car-to-car connectivity, or Android Automotive as the operating system in the car? Mr. Hack,
well, I didn't understand the first one, but in general, I think it's hard to get a rating about vulnerabilities and risks in general. It largely depends on the risk vector. So for vulnerabilities, how many cars you can attack through this, and we heard it before. You might be able to attack one car by one vulnerability, and you might be able to attack a whole fleet and maybe even a whole brand. So it's very difficult to, in my opinion, not possible to rank the hacks according to their effect.
Also ask the question to Mr. Kraus. Would you say there is a ranking?
No, I totally agree on what Mr. Hackenberg said. You cannot say if it's Wi-Fi, what had happened, for example, to Tesla, where you could enter the car. Also some telematics system via cellular communication. What is important then that you know that all these points are possible entry points, and you think, okay, what could happen if an attacker, this is what Mr. Hackenberg said about the risk, what could the attacker do with it? Could he open the door or could he manipulate the brakes? Again, my example from before. And then you have to think, okay, if an attacker is into my telematics device, for example, he can only have cause limited damage. Before he can do something serious, he has to do some additional attack steps. And this is something which needs a thorough evaluation. You do some threat and risk analysis, what could happen. And this is also something what has been standardized or needs to be standardized or is currently standardized, how to proceed, evaluate threats, evaluate risks, and then take the appropriate mechanisms.
Well, thank you very much for that. There is the next question, and it's really concrete. It goes to Frank Sommerfeld. First question, which is important to me, Mr. Sommerfeld, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Wow. Are you doing good?
I'm fine, thank you very much.
Perfect. So you're ready to answer this question. There it is again. Now I can see it. In the case of a cyber attack on a large number of vehicles, the insurer always faces the risk of accumulation. How does the Allianz deal with this?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. I mean, accumulation risk happens in many instances, not just on cyber and cars, and for example, natural catastrophes and so on and so forth. And we deal with accumulation risk in the same way as we do that in all the other cases. First, I guess it's very important to understand the risk at all, and that's why we are all here together, why we have the Allianz Center of Technology to really understand what possible entry points we have, what the risk really is that we are facing. Then we obviously need to understand the liabilities involved. We had that already during the discussion. Is it a manufacturer's liability or is it an insurable risk? Then we need to understand, quantify the risk, what's the possible scenarios coming out of that. With that information, we then have to define our risk appetite, how much risk do we really want to take, and otherwise to mitigate it via reinsurance risk after all. And that's the way we're handling every accumulation risk, and in particular also the accumulation risk in cyber attacks in cars.
Well, thank you, Mr. Sommerfeld. We are going on collecting questions. There's already the next one, but I got one that we didn't talk about. 2015, there was a scenario at Fiat Chrysler, I think it was. They had to recall 1.4 million cars, caused damage to about $600 million. Is it possible that this is going to happen in Germany or Europe?
This is for me always possible because if a technical architecture is not designed in such a way that I can protect each single car, that a complete fleet is, let's say, affected, then I have exactly the same case. So if a hacker finds a security hole in a architecture, then the consequence would be that the fleet has to be updated and not only a single car. This is, of course, the worst case scenario for each car manufacturer. Therefore, we need software update over the air, which is one weapon against it, so that I can react and don't need to call all cars into the service station, which is a high level of cost also implicated in this one here. So therefore, this is a potential risk we have to face, yes.
All right. You just said, Mr. Adelkofer, over the air updates, we've talked about that, and there's a question concerning that. Are such popular remote updates over the air safe enough for cars? Are users who won't update their cars regularly at risk in the future? Should cars be updated for the rest of their lives? So we start with the first one. Are such popular remote updates safe enough for cars? And I would recommend Mr. Kraus give us a short answer to that.
So I think they are necessary. That's also why they got standardized now, because we heard today very often that there are still vulnerabilities. I think you know it from your PC at home, that you have your regular Windows updates, for example, and you have to fix it. So to stay secure, to have a secure system, you need to install these updates. And of course, it would be good to have updates for the whole lifetime of your car. If car manufacturers say, okay, we have only support for 10 years, and after that you do not get some updates, I think then you might have some previously undiscovered vulnerabilities which could be exploited by an attacker. So in this case, maybe you have to turn off your connectivity, so to stay safe in your car, because the security cannot be guaranteed. So this is definitely a requirement, what you need, that you have to need secure updates to ensure the security. So on the other hand, so this was one hand, on the other hand, of course, this could also be misused as an attack point. So of course, you need to use reliable security mechanisms to secure the updates. So all your updates originate only for your car manufacturer, are digitally signed. So you need to apply state-of-the-art cryptography to ensure that also these updates cannot be misused by an attacker. So you need also, there are some more technical details. For example, you need something like rollback protection, that nobody can install an old update which has some known vulnerabilities and stuff like this. So this is a very complex scenario, but if you do it right, you can significantly increase the security of your system. And it is a must-have, definitely.
Mr. Lauterwasser, I think the second part of the question could be answered by you. Are users who won't update their cars regularly at risk in the future?
Definitely. I think, for example, if you look at Tesla, I think some of the updates are mandatory, so you're just obliged to do them, otherwise the car won't function anymore. So I think we will see a situation where this is just something the user has to do, and he has no option to say no, because due to liability of the manufacturer, he will make sure that every car has been updated before it goes to the street again, which is quite a challenge again. But you have to compare the possibilities of software update with the option to bring every car to a body shop, which is quite expensive exercise. So I think the updates over the air have a good potential, but they should not be misused. So the car has to be fully developed when it comes to the market, and it should not be something where you say, oh, we do this during the lifetime of the car. So it's absolutely necessary that the car is really fully programmed and everything at the market start. But still, then it's an option if new vulnerabilities get visible, then to do it in a cost-effective way and very quickly, because a recall and to the body shops takes a lot of time and is very expensive. Estimates for the cheap recall, for example, in the US say was about $600 million to fix that.
Right, so I think that also answers the last part of the question. The updates must be there for the whole vehicle's lifetime cycle, right?
Yes, definitely. And I think that's something which has to be discussed also in the future, because how long is the lifetime of the vehicle? When you look at old timers today, they might last for 50, 100 years. And there will be definitely a point where this software update is not longer possible. And I think there will be a time in 5, 10 years where we will still have to think about how that goes into the future.
Could these updates maybe be installed automated way? Then the customer is not in charge anymore.
It depends. Yes, I think you always have to give the customer an option, but the other option can be your car will not work anymore. But still, right. Yes.
Okay. Another question. Allianz and other insurers have been demanding access to the car data for years. Of course they have. Sounds to me as if the manufacturers so far have not reacted and opened the data access for your industry. Is this correct? Well, this is a question maybe good for Mr. Haug. Mr. Haug, do you feel good to answer that?
Absolutely. No, very good question. Thank you. And it's one of the challenges we have in our current discussions. It's not only between car manufacturers and insurers, it's basically between all the members, let's say, of the digital car ecosystem. And I think one thing is important for us as insurers. We do not discuss or talk about any kind of a full access of any data a car is collecting. For us, it's very crucial to have data also in the interests of our customers, which can help us to basically find out the truth in case of an accident or a car theft. And for this limited data set for example, theft or accident data, we think we need to have the data. It needs to be for court cases, it needs to be that the customer, the driver, him, herself knows, and for this we want the access. And there is an ongoing discussion, how can this be limited? Is it a half access, a full access? Is it just a very certain set of data? Is it like for the German law system? Is it pan-European? And so you can see there is a lot of discussion still ongoing. We are in talks with the industry. We want certain standards, but there has been no final real solution yet.
Well, it's not finalized today, but we try to give a direction, and I would say let's activate Mr. Claudius Leibfritz. Are you with me in the room over there? Yes, he is. And there is the question, Dr. Leibfritz, automotive works intensively with the car manufacturers worldwide. How does this cooperation look like in terms of cybersecurity?
Well, thank you very much for the question. And as we have learned this morning, cybersecurity is a very important topic, and it's not in the responsibility of one player. Indeed, we do work with car manufacturers and research institutions across the globe together in various projects, and Christoph Lauterwasser spoke about a couple of them. Now, I think it's important to say, no matter when we develop a new joint product with an automotive manufacturer or we tackle a special service feature, cybersecurity, and that includes also the integrity of customer data, is essential to us. So we make sure that both our partners and certainly Allianz commit and fulfill the highest standards of cybersecurity and data protection. It's the essence of our projects that we do together, and we are learning. But we make sure that, to the best of our knowledge, cybersecurity standards and data protection standards are fulfilled. And because it's not only of essence to us as Allianz, but also to the car manufacturers and other partners, it's very clear that this is an important topic of discussion and an important element in all our joint projects.
Thank you very much. And this one goes to Christoph Lauterwasser again. How difficult is it to bring car manufacturers to the negotiation table and make them come up with a standard for their black boxes?
Generally speaking, this is a process that is now in the hands also of the standardization agreements in Geneva, in the United Nations Economic Council. There, at the moment, there's an informal working group looking into the data needed for normal vehicles, but also for automated vehicles. And we have brought our arguments to the table there in this informal working group. But you can see this is a multilateral, multinational process. So it's not just AZT saying we want this and we get it, but we can bring our arguments to the table. For example, we are strongly stressing the point that accidents with vulnerable road users must be detected. And we will also make a point in the future that cybersecurity attacks must be detected and also stored. But that's something which is, as I said, a quite complex process in the standardization issue. But I think it's important that we raise our voice also from the insurance industry and from other actors, because this needs to be brought to the table and to the attention also of the industry.
As we see, there is many processes going on. Can we talk about a timetable when we have solutions?
Well, the first solution that you will see in terms of black box is from 2022 onward. A black box is mandatory in Europe, so the European legislation has already reacted. At the moment, the discussion is which details will be stored. So there is progress. Sometimes we think it should be faster. Sometimes we think there should be more data. But it's an ongoing process, and we're not alone in the world. So it's a multilateral discussion, and I think my colleagues would agree to that.
Yes. A question regarding insurance policies with 60-month replacement value compensation. Doesn't that encourage fraud such as theft? I'm happy to be not in the position to answer this question, but there was an advice given to me. Mr. Sommerfeld, I read the question again. Question regarding insurance policies with 60-month replacement value compensation. Doesn't that encourage fraud such as theft? Can you deal with this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, first of all, you must probably understand what the 60 months of replacement actually means. So if in the full casco insurance policies that we have, a total loss of a car is happening within the first 60 months, you get a completely new car.
Right.
Obviously, there are some chances that there might be fraudulent actions happening. But that can happen not just with 60 months, so it can happen with 24 and 36 months as well, I guess. We have a team of experts who actually look into fraud. We have AI technology looking into fraud to understand how we can actually prevent that from happening. But in the first place, I mean, we need to look at the customers, and the customers told us that they actually after 5 years, the car is stolen. They don't want to buy a used car with this money, so that's why they get that extra premium cover from us. And looking at the customers, we say, okay, if they really want that, we need to make that happen, and we can't not just do it because there might be some people out there who actually use that for their own benefit. And with our fraud departments, we can detect quite a lot already.
All right. Now I know what we're talking about. Thank you very much. Do we have more questions? I see that there are more questions flying in. It is topic insurance regarding the virtual key, asking about digital keys and user responsibility, how to fix the problem that not all phones receive updates on time. Will it be necessary to take out additional insurance for the car depending on what phone we use as a digital key? All right. Hands up. Who feels? Yeah.
Maybe I can answer to that.
Yeah.
First of all, at the moment, what we see regarding virtual vehicle keys, it's quite limited what kind of phones you can use and what kind of operating system is permissible from the car manufacturer's side. So it's actually the responsibility of the car manufacturer to get this right, and also to be sure that after certain updates are available, they will be also used in that context. Mm-hmm. If you speak about potential impacts on insurance, that's much beyond our typical granularity, how we do insurance. I mean, we don't look at individual, let's say, phones or so. We have a certain model that has a certain risk given, and if the theft claims rise in our German type class system, and I'm quite sure in other European markets it's similar, the insurance premium will get higher. So if a certain model becomes a target for thieves, that leads ultimately to higher insurance premiums for the customers who are driving that car. Mm-hmm. And that creates a feedback loop to the car manufacturer, because if the insurance rating for a certain vehicle model is too high, there's a high incentive to limit that. And that's part of our discussion, our ongoing discussions with the car manufacturers. But this kind of detail, what phone is a customer using or not, is beyond the scope of anything that we do in motor insurance.
Mm-hmm. Do you have more information to that?
And it's basically, you need a certain kind of hardware underneath, and according to that, also the right software in order to enable such kind of apps, which is a virtual key. And this is what has to be provided. So old phones, 5, 6, 7 years old, are not anymore suitable for such kind of applications. So we need the right underlying hardware in order to enable such kind of services at state-of-the-art technology.
Mm-hmm. So the customer has to decide whether he's buying a new car or a new phone.
Or both.
Or both, yeah. Only in package. Maybe you should think about that as well. The package question. Mr. Haug, I see you feel in the position, being in the position to answer that as well.
Yes, definitely. So as Mr. Lauterweiss said, we not defer or really check, or even as an insurer make mandatory to use a certain hardware, anything. It's important, it needs to be standardized, and the virtual key itself needs to fulfill certain standards and also safety, security features. Mm-hmm. And then it's up to the car manufacturer only allow for these certain things with these standards. On the other hand, if like the customer did everything right, it's on the right phone, and then something in a single case happens, we will of course not shy back and will cover. But it's not up to us to defer, you need to have this kind of a phone or this kind of a phone. As said before, this is in the sphere before, and the car manufacturer need to make sure this is the virtual key, it has certain standards, and it can be installed on certain platforms, on certain hardware, and this needs to be fulfilled. If there is any kind of a critical safety feature needs to be communicated to the customer and maybe even made mandatory, but this is not insurer's business, this is up to the car manufacturer.
All right. We've got already the next question, and this one goes to Mr. Kraus first. Some drivers like to use the OBD2 dongle for in-car telematics. Is it a safe solution or is it rather risk?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because we did in some research project for an investigation of all these OBD dongles and their provided security. And of course, we also found vulnerabilities. And also other researchers in the world have shown that, for example, there are OBD dongles where you can manipulate the firmware of these systems. Concrete, we had one OBD dongle where you can install, so there was a vulnerability in the code update process, and via that you can manipulate the OBD dongle in a way that you can send malicious data to the car. So for example, you could send some signal to activate the wipers or the lights. And this is of course a security threat. So as far as I know, you can ask the guys from the insurance companies more, maybe they know it. It's something like a gray area if you are actually allowed to connect these systems to the OBD dongle, because if the car is very open, so we have some electronic system of some cars where you can reach basically every control unit in the car via this OBD, you can send any message to the CAN bus and can activate certain functions. So if you have some gateways and some protection, it's much more difficult. So these OBD dongles definitely can pose a threat, or can threat and risk, which can attacker exploit.
Mr. Lauterwasser, would you
We have made exactly the same experiences in our attacks. We've seen their vulnerabilities via the OBD2 port. It's called the onboard diagnosis port, and it's originally designed to measure the exhaust pipe emissions from the cars. So it's a tool for the body shops originally. But we see anything that you connect to that has a potential to create risks for the cars. And I even think we should reconsider in the future whether this is really necessary to have this port. And I think I'm with the car industry in that respect, because it does create problems. And we have also written a publication, our partners from the OTH, on the risks induced by these OBD2 devices, which can be a risk. So you have to be very careful about that kind of use of these dongles. They have to make sure that they are secure. And as I would say, it's something the legislator will have to think about in the future, whether this is still necessary to have this port, and maybe find better ways via gateways to have access to the cars.
I did realize that there was a question that directly goes to Klaus-Peter Röhler. Maybe we can play that one again. This is already the next one. Or we do this first. Mr. Sommerfeld, you are still with us, I guess. What can be done within terms of cybersecurity with older cars that do not have an educate technology standard to implement cybersecurity standards?
Probably not directly my area of expertise, to be honest. I probably would feed that back to Mr. Lauterwasser.
All right, then we put the first one to Mr. Lauterwasser, and the second one would be to that question, what about the insurance cover in that context? Should we switch for that to you again?
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, obviously we honor our terms and conditions and our contracts, and in the same way as we do that with all the other cars, so there will be no limitations in the coverage whatsoever.
All right, so the technical part rather to Mr. Lauterwasser.
But I would even give this to the automotive industry, because this is really a complicated question. What happens to the car when there's no update available? That's not something that we can have come up with a solution with, because that's part of the responsibility of the car manufacturer. As Mr. Sommerfeld has pointed out, we would not distinguish in our terms and conditions. We cannot distinguish this, but it's very important to address the issue from the automotive industry side. But I don't have a solution right now here.
I'm happy that you are with us, but a concrete solution?
Let's define what is an old car. Means if you talk about cars which are 30 years old, I would not worry at all, because all of electronics fair were quite isolated, so I don't see a high risk at all for any kind of cyber attacks. If you talk about cars in the range of 10 to 20 years, is also that there's still a quite clear separation, for example, of safety features from other interfaces. So the infotainment has no access to safety features. It's more than the cars the last, let's call it 5 to 10 years, which we have to see how much upgradability is inside. And we cannot give here a general answer, because each OEM or each car manufacturer has done his architecture differently. So you need the answer from each OEM directly, how much he can upgrade and how much he is robust enough for the future updates. Yes, so therefore there's, for these cars the last 10 years, always a difficulty to judge how well they are tuned for future updates.
We arranged about an hour for your questions. I'm so happy for having it so interactive. Thank you very much for that. This one is the one I saw before. Mr. Röhler, in the press release for the Motor Day 2020, they call a European-wide center to defend against hacker attacks. What is the benefit for the customers? We've talked about this center before.
Yeah, first of all, the Automotive Security Information Center is something we want to see pan-European, and it should be for multi-industry players, so we can really create a network. Now, we have basically two functions we can achieve with that. The one is we can bundle competencies, and we can really also bundle and focus on the data, and over time, we can build up a database. Now, it will help us, first of all, to detect very early attacks. We can even work on prevention, because we can also identify potential attacks. Then, if something has happened, we are able to support the client with the data and the experience we have in the database. And the fourth dimension is certainly, that's our original business, to make risks calculable. And with a database, I can price the risk in the best way for the customer. And looking at the dimensions we are having here, for example, in Allianz Germany, 40% of our premium in property and casualty is motor. And if you look that in the next 3 to 5 years, the connected cars will triple what we have seen in the studies. This is a very important dimension and function to make risks calculable.
Thank you, Mr. Röhler. I now got a question I think that could be answered by Professor Hackenberg as well. In the present, the brake pedal is still mechanical connected to the hydraulics. To you, do you think a cyber attack on a car today would be able to enable an emergency brake? Mr. Hackenberg, are you connected to me again? Should I
just jumped on my seat here, but could you repeat the question?
Yes, of course. In the present, the brake pedal is still mechanical connected to the hydraulics. Do you think a cyber attack on a car today would be able to enable an emergency brake?
Well, if the emergency brake, as far as I can tell, is a non-mechanic person, is still on a wire or on a hydraulic or whatever, I think it cannot be activated by hacking by IT. If it is a drive-by-wire thing, yes, then it can.
We have two experts to talk about that. Mr. Kraus, what would you say?
Yeah, I would agree. So if you have, for example, some driver assistance system, distance control, or also some emergency brake, which is done by wire, or some automatic parking system, which also connects to the steering and braking system. And then, of course, you can manipulate this. So I totally agree with Mr. Hackenberg.
All right. So for you guys out there, just an internal information, because we are not allowed to have so many people in here. It's always a coming and going. It's funny to see how mobile we all are today. Great. Is there anything that we didn't talk about yet? Then there is the last chance for you to ask right now. Of course, we will be there for you after the event as well. We have an email address called autotag@allianz.de, where you can ask your questions and get further information. And we also have our download area with all the pictures, films, and other information that you need. This one is the last question, and it goes to Mr. Rico Förster. Does Allianz plan to provide some special type of insurance against cyber attacks especially, or this insurance will be part of basic insurance?
It's a good question, thank you. So does Allianz do something special in cyber? Yes, we do already. When we talk now about motor, I think we are at the beginning of this new era, and there are so many players in the field, as we have understood today. And I think we need to work on solutions which are really covering needs of our clients going forward. And as we understood today, there are probably through the Information Security Center a lot of possibilities where to answer customer needs going forward. So therefore, for corporate retail clients, we have solutions already, as we heard. So in the motor space, our clients are secure. So don't worry about this. But as cyber attacks are rising and the actions and also objects are different, so we have also to adapt our needs and also our insurance cover going forward.
All right. Mr. Förster, I start with you. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much, Mr. Haug. Thanks to the Allianz CEOs who are with us today, Frank Sommerfeld, Claudius Leibfritz, and Klaus-Peter Röhler. Thanks to you guys, Mr. Lauterwasser, Hans Adelkofer, Konrad Meyer. I forgot Mr. Hackenberg. Thank you for being with us today. And of course, Monsieur Wes, you are still with us, I guess?
I am still with you.
All
yes,
right. Thank you very, very much for your time. A bonne journée à France, and talk to you maybe next year. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the Allianz Motor Day 2020. Thank you very much for your attention, for your questions. Maybe we see each other next year again. So far, take care, be healthy, and have a great day. And of course, again, the email address for your further questions, autotag@allianz.de. Bye-bye.